Hello everyone, TLSG here, and today we're going to be bringing you guys a Living Tribunal deck. Not something that I thought I would run really ever. I've done decently in Conquest with this. It does take some maneuvering whenever you figure out if they have an Enchantress or a Rogue. I ran into 2 Rogue counters back to back. I was able to overcome one. The second one, they got a 50-50 flip between Electro and Iron Man. They got the lucky pool and were able to overcome us that way. But either way, you can do very decent things with this deck. I actually used this deck to hit Infinite tonight, and I maintained just under a 58% win rate over about 40 games on my climb to Infinite. And so overall, fantastic list. Between the use of Magik, Iron Lad, and Jubilee, in certain games, you can almost guarantee that you'll have access to your Living Tribunal, to your Onslaught, to your Professor X lock, depending on what you're facing and what you need to be successful in that game. So we're going to be running a little bit of ladder. I don't have any gold tickets built up right now, and I don't really want to showcase any silver tier games. But now that we are infinite, we will build up a log of our gold conquest tickets, and so then we can take these lists into the gold conquest as we gather and hoard our infinity conquest tickets. So let's go ahead and jump into a couple of games. Thank you guys as always for being here. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Yo Woody MJTTV. The first location is Atlantis, so we can play our Jeff on 2. Dark Dimension is actually pretty enticing. If we get a ramp component, we can do Iron Man, Onslaught, and then Living Tribunal, all behind the Dark Dimension. Now, if you're thinking of, if you've picked up Living Tribunal, or if you unlocked it from a cache and you were like, there's no decks for it, you don't want to play it behind a Dark Dimension or an Invisible Woman until you're ready for the opponent to know that you're running Living Tribunal. Because if you play it beforehand, it will even out the power across the entire game. And so then it's not an advantage. And so Subterranean is the last location, unfortunately. So there's going to be a lot of rocks involved. Let's go ahead and go Jubilee to try and thin our deck a little bit. Maybe we get Magik. Maybe we just get a rock out of the way. Who knows? Or we give away our whole game plan and we let them know we have Living Tribunal. Oops. So we do get Magik now. So we can Magik to extend the game. We get some additional time to draw and fish for the Onslaught. And so Iron Man, Onslaught stacked into this lane are going to be massive. And so I think that's what we're shooting for. And then if they have a Rogue, then it's a 50-50. For them to be able to take this one out. And they did snap on us. We'll see. We'll see what their line is. It could be that they're looking to do a Hawk. Maybe they have the Hawk. Maybe they have the Enchantress. If they do have Enchantress, very unfortunate. We would have been better off. No, MODOK. Okay. So MODOK hits the Swarms, Morbius, Helicarrier. And so I'm curious if this can't be a Hella resummon deck. And then it hits the Wong as well. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to hide an Iron Man here. This could be Dracula. They played it on 4, so it could be Dracula. But they don't have an Apocalypse that they've discarded. You know, I think it's okay. We're going to do the Iron Man. We have the Iron Lad. We'll do the Wave here as well. If we hadn't played the Rock for whatever reason, we could move Jeff over and we'd have an extra 3 that would be doubled. It's okay. It's fine. Everything is fine. We're fine here. So they have the MODOK, but no Apocalypse. They do have the Swarms to be able to float onto the board, interestingly enough. And so the 2 Swarms, and then the Collector comes down super late, though. And then the Rock. I think we're okay here. Mystique doesn't copy anything. For 4 cubes? You're going to risk it off for 4 cubes here? If we hit the Onslaught, oh, that is just salt in the wound. I don't know if we would have won this otherwise. We would not have. We would not have won this had that not hit the 1 out of 6 Onslaught. Sometimes you get a little bit lucky. That's not going to be the case with this for every single time. But we do have a lot of ways to dig to try to find those answers eventually. Let's go ahead and take the 4 cubes. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have new low score. The first location is Wakanda. We do have our Jeff, Iron Man, and Living Tribunal so far. So pretty decent starting hand. I'm going to go ahead and play the Ant-Man out into Wakanda, and then we'll go from there. Jeff is going to be decent, especially if we end up going like Professor X. So if we end up drawing Luke Cage, we're not going to go Living Tribunal every single game. If we get a successful Professor X lock, then some games we're just going to go like Iron Man into Onslaught. But that's not going to be every single time. So we get an interesting situation here. We can't play. Next turn we can do Jubilee into Death's Domain, which could give a little bit of information away. They have Iron Lad that they play on 3, and it ends up hitting, Korg. That could have been better, but it could have been much worse as well. Let's go with the Jubilee. If it doesn't hit anything great, we have Professor X next turn as well. And then we'll go from there. It may hit Magik. It may hit Electro. That's probably one of the lower rolls, but it's still not bad. Jubilee could also just pull into the rock, and then we are what we are. Okay, so Nebula comes down. They do go ahead and play the second Korg, second copy of the Korg. We get Luke Cage. Okay, fantastic. Luke Cage is not terrible in Necrotia. And we can now do... We don't have initiative, so now we can do Professor X. It's not a lot of power, but it might get us there. We can do Professor X into Death's Domain. Ooh, they wave on the last turn. We'll wave back at them. We're gonna do Professor X into Death's Domain. They can move Jeff out of this location. We get Magik now. The 1 out of 4 of Onslaught, not huge since we're not really going to utilize it. Actually, Iron Man's not fantastic here either. Do they play into Necrotia or Wakanda? Because if they do Necrotia, then this may not be the worst thing. But we've already won Death's Domain. I mean, this is going to be essentially the same, right? We're going to go Iron Lad and see what it pulls. They move Jeff over into Necrotia. Interesting. And then Chavez into the left lane. What do we with our Luke Cage, we actually are able to overcome their power in Necrotia. I mean, we'll take it. It's sloppy. It's sloppy, but sometimes Professor X is going to give you that reach or that lockdown, especially against the bounce matchup. Professor X is going to be pivotal, so is Wave, depending on what kind of read you get. We will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have C. The first location is Stark Tower. And so we can Luke Cage, we can then Wave, and then Professor X. Gives us a decent advantage over there. Plus Luke Cage, and we get the sewer system, which is also not too bad. Depending on what they play or if they play early, being able to shut them down in Stark Tower. So if they go with if they're running a high evolutionary lockjaw, a lot of times we can lock a lane before they really get their rotation going, and it's fantastic when we can do that. Let's go ahead and go with Wave. We'll do Professor X. We could do like a Jubilee on 5 into an Iron Man plus Ant-Man, potentially, depending on what they play here. Ooh, so the Bast tells me this is either Bounce or this is a Cerebro 3. Either way, we're very confident. If we were trying to climb or if we weren't post-infinite, I would snap here. We're in a really good spot with this Professor X lock. Looking at the Bast, we know that they don't have anything over 3, and so we should be able to capitalize and punish them in the Stark Tower location. And so if we were still climbing, this is a snap moment. Okay, so they do go for mid. Oh, a blue Marvel. Cerebro, no. Not Cerebro 3. Cerebro 3 doesn't use blue Marvel. Maybe it's just a deck. Let's do Ant-Man and Jubilee. With the Luke Cage, we don't have to worry about sewer system negatively impacting us. Jubilee could pull into Onslaught. If so, it's fantastic. We just throw an Iron Man there on the last turn. We're good to go. It could pull into Jeff. If so, we can use that as a movable resource. Could pull into Magik to extend the game. The only bad outcome would potentially be Electro, and even that one's not like the worst thing in the world, because then we could just slap an Iron Man or whatever into this lane, and then we do get the Onslaught. So beautiful, beautiful value. Unless they have a Rogue, which would be really, really strange for them to have. Unless they have a Rogue, we should have no problem bringing this one the rest of the way home. Let's throw our Iron Man into the sewer system. It's not a Living Tribunal game. They're not all going to be Living Tribunal games. And that is where I find the strength of Living Tribunal lies, is that you don't necessarily have to or want to play it every single game. You can use it for big 8-cube swings whenever you maybe just barely lose the Professor X lockdown location, or if there's a hard to reach location, then, or if your hand lines up just perfectly, then you get a lot of value being able to kind of have that reach. Otherwise doing something like this is going to be just as impactful. So they have a Patriot. Whoa, interesting. It's a Bastriot, a Bast Patriot list. And we will take the 2 cubes. We were able to entice them to stay. We'll take the 2. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Dad. As a fellow dad, I can appreciate the name. So they're running a Nebula, potentially a control heavy build, potentially a like lockdown and control style. We don't know for sure. I am going to play Luke Cage into their Nebula lane. Los Diablo Space may potentially destroy Bar with No Name. If it doesn't, we're going to avoid Living Tribunal at all costs. Okay, so Great Web. That's not terrible for us. It's not great either, though. Especially with all of the cards pulling over into mid, it just makes it tough. Let's do a wave. I don't know. We're gonna do wave, and we'll find out from there. They could storm the Bar with No Name location. No, they play for Great Web. Juggernaut slaps our wave into Los Diablo Space, and then the Great Web pulls it straight back. Mid is now free and clear, so we can try to be a Living Tribunal gamer. And so we would want to do one of our expensive cards here. So Living Tribunal would be fine because our cards are going to pull into Great Web. So we're going to have to cap this out early. I think we do Onslaught. The only thing we have to worry about is them having like a Rogue or an Enchantress. I don't think they'll have an Enchantress, but they could have a Rogue. I think that is the risk that we're going to take. It would end up being, there's a 33% chance that we are perfectly fine if they get Luke Cage, partially issue if they get Onslaught or Iron Man, but otherwise we should be, I think, okay. So they play a Magneto. What kind of deck is Dad running? We have the Iron Man, so that's going to slap down so much power in the Great Web. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to stack it with the Living Tribunal in the same lane. It's fine. It's fine. We understand. We're not bitter. So now, if they play anywhere else but Great Web, it's going to pull their card over. And so maybe on the last turn, I don't know. I think we always have to go Living Tribunal on the last turn. We don't have another big power play. Because we could do Iron Lad, we could do Jubilee, but it's not fantastic. Ooh, so they go Arrow. But the Arrow is not quite going to be enough. We have the 48 power in Great Web. We're going to have the Living Tribunal that's, I guess, going to split it amongst all of the locations. I don't think they do anything bigger than what we can do, right? I'm going to do some math. So 48 and 6 is going to be 54. Divided by 3 should be a solid 18 power in each lane. Okay, they retreat. So unless they were able to do more than 18 in one of these 2 locations, we had that one locked in. We will take the win where we can. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Pestilence, and I've played against Pestilence a couple of times. They're running a high evolutionary Silver Surfer, and I tried to brew one of these on my own, and I wasn't able to get it to work, but I did lose. They were very close matches, but I lost 2 times to Pestilence. They were running 2 1-cost cards early to get some additional power on the board, and it was just calling Killmonger. Killmonger was calling my name, seeing those cards, but we don't have it built into this one. We can do a wave here. We can do a wave into an Onslaught, and then all we're looking for is bringing it the rest of the way home. The Broods in Washington, D.C. are big. We can always Magik that location, potentially, because I assume they will have like a Juggernaut or a Storm or something similar. We have Jubilee to dig into our deck. We have Iron Lad. Let's go Onslaught here. Depending on what they play, we may go with a Magik next turn, either into Washington, D.C., into Sakaar. They have a Storm somewhere in their deck, that we have to be cautious of. And so let's go Magik here. We believe in Magik. Let's go Magik into Washington, D.C. All we need is the Living Tribunal, and we are good to go. And so if we draw into it, perfect. If not, we have a couple of extra turns now. And so if they didn't use their storm here, we have to be cautious on the last turn of it. Okay, so the Sunspot and Nebula finally come down. Cyclops afflicts this by -4, which is just insanity. Let's go ahead and do the Living Tribunal in the left lane. I imagine that they will try to do a cheeky storm, if they have it, into Limbo. They don't. Okay, so they skip Soak and Float, which is going to be good for their Sunspot. Cyclops is going to negatively afflict this lane, which is massive. So much power lost until we get the Loot Cage, which is definitely going to be worth dropping. So let's go Loot Cage, let's go Jeff, and then if they play something that is an additional affliction, it's fine. I would like to do something higher power than the Jeff in the left lane, but the Loot Cage is just going to be huge. It's going to bump us back a lot. Juggernaut comes down, unfortunately, but that should be fine. It pumps us into mid. The Silver Surfer comes down, bumps them up a bit in the left lane. The Wasp comes down, but we are now protected because of our Loot Cage, and only because of our Loot Cage, and only because of a decent high roll that we got as well. We will finally take a W against Pestilence. Next up we have Rotello, and the first location is the Forge, so we played our Ant-Man away from it. They do have a Nova though, which is unfortunate. Let's go ahead and do our Loot Cage into mid. They're running some kind of destruction deck. Maybe a counter in destruction deck, so maybe they have Shang-Chi. We have to look out for a couple of these cards. I assume that they also have the Killmonger. Let's go with our Electro. We could do a Professor X lock on... We can do a Professor X lock on turn 4, which should help keep our monster cozy. It should help keep Vormir safe, whichever one we decide to play it in. We could even play it onto their Nova if we wanted to try to destroy it. But if they don't play for Vormir this turn, I think we just do our Professor X into Vormir. Okay, so the Rock Slide comes down. Big value for them. They have 4 energy here. A 4 cost would cost 3, so they would have to do a 1 cost and a 4 cost to be able to do something, get something to stick into Vormir. And so I think we're okay to do Professor X. Or do we do Professor X here? Next turn we can do Iron Man into maybe an Onslaught. Because I think they have the counter cards as well. So I think not only do they have Hawk, but they have Shang-Chi. They have initiative here. I don't like the Professor X in mid. They could Shang-Chi here. They do 2 cards into Vormir. So one is a 1 cost, or just 2 Sentinels. Could be a Sentinel here. The Lizard, wow. That's unfortunate. And so we could do Living Tribunal. We could do a Jubilee and a Jeff. So this will bring them up to 6 after Nova pops or procs. Jeff will bring us up to 7. So we're okay there. I also kind of like the Living Tribunal play. Let's do Jubilee. Let's do Jubilee and then we'll see. We are going to start digging through our deck a little bit, which will make the Hawk a little bit less impactful. They use Killmonger. That's fine. We're okay with Killmonger coming down. It does buff up their middle lane. We still are worried about a Shang-Chi. I assume that this is a very heavy counter style Hawk list. And so the Jubilee, we're going to need... Okay, Wave. Is Wave okay? I don't know. I don't know that Wave is okay here. Iron Lad could either hit Magik to extend the game. Onslaught, which wouldn't actually do anything, would it? Or 2 rocks. And Iron Man here doesn't give us what we need. Oi. Oi, oi. A Living Tribunal definitely doesn't give us what we need. An Iron Man here is an 11 power play. Does it beat their 11 power play? Maybe. But if they have Shang-Chi. If they have Shang-Chi, then we do lose this one. I'm going to let it play out, though. We're going to be a good sport. We're going to let it play out. Is this Shang-Chi mid? No, it's an Enchantress. Interesting. Takes out their Zabu. We have the Iron Man come down. That's 22 power in mid. We win Vormir with the Jeff play. There were a lot of ways that we lost that one. We will take the 8 cubes though. Let's go ahead and take the 8. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Twilight Gap. And we played against them a little while, I think during our Infinite Climb. And they were running a Null Destroy deck. So we saw the Destroyer, we saw Null. And so we have to be careful about doing a wave play. But Electro into Death's Domain feels pretty solid. We have Jubilee to get some additional reach there, so if we don't end up going Living Tribunal, then we can do decent things there. Lemuria, I don't necessarily care for here, because we would be able to Professor X lock on 4, but because of Lemuria, we're not going to have the extra energy from Electro, and so we will be able to do like a 6. We'll be able to do some decent plays. I think we do Jubilee. Let's do Jubilee into Death's Domain. We may get the magic change, and they wouldn't be able to get a free destruction on their Electro, on their Bucky Barnes, or whatever it is that they wanted to do it on. And so we'll see. The Electro is now gone. We have the extra energy. Jubilee is coming down and pulling into the wave. Okay. Not the worst thing. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. And they get an Electro as well. So we will have initiative here. Do they go something like Destroyer? Do they go Nimrod? I think we're going to Professor X into Lemuria. I think they play for Death's Domain. I think they do a Nimrod. There's the Nimrod. Beautiful, beautiful for us. That is now going to only pump into one location or one direction. We could do Iron Man. We could do Living Tribunal, which helps us get some reach into Death's Domain. I guess I'm going to go with the Iron Lad, and we'll see. Iron Lad, and we'll see. They could do a Destroyer. We would need Iron Man to be able to come over the top of that, and that is exactly what we pull. So Destroyer is going to pump their Nimrod over into Death's Domain, but that is going to be an unfortunate one. We had the chance to do the Living Tribunal plus an Ant-Man. That would have given us just under the Nimrod range in Death's Domain, though. And so had we had something a little bit bigger here, it would have been better, but it is what it is. We will take the 2 cubes. We will take a little bit of fortune where we can get it. Unfortunately, these are all setting up as Professor X locks, so with something like Nimrod, you want to block those alleys and those spaces instead of Living Tribunal. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, see if we can get a Living Tribunal match instead. All right, next up we have Pestilence again, unfortunately. Because Pestilence is running a pretty solid Affliction style Silver Surfer deck. They do get Sunspot on 1. Between the Sunspot and the Nebula, they're just getting so much value game after game. Let's go with Luke Cage. That's going to stop the Affliction. Now, they could have a Rogue. This being a Silver Surfer, they could have a Rogue. If so, it's unfortunate. But on turn number 3, what do we get? We get Wave. Okay, depending on what we draw into here, we could hide Onslaught. We could hide Iron Man. We could hide Living Tribunal. If we draw into any of those, that may be what we go with. And so an Iron Lad is good. Is it good enough? I don't know. I think our best bet is going to be hiding the Onslaught, so that we have that surprise, like high value play all across the board. They're going to get plenty of value in the Stark Tower lane unless we magic that location, which we will gladly do. They won't be able to use Storm. They won't be able to use Juggernaut to push us out. They could use Juggernaut in Dark Dimension on the last turn, which would push whatever we play on the last turn there out. But otherwise, I think we're relatively fine. We're going to be hunting and digging for... They go with the Spider-Man lock, but that's one of the good things about Magik is that Spider-Man lock is not nearly as impressive whenever you have the game extension. And so we do get our Iron Man now. And so then we would just be hunting for the Living Tribunal. That is what we need. We have the Onslaught, we have the Iron Man. We need the Living Tribunal to spread that power all across the board. And then we would be solid. Okay, so they storm Atlantis. One card into Dark Dimension. Could be... Oi, 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 oi. I guess this might be our best bet. It's an extra 6. This would give us the extra 6 to combat it. Misty Knight could float there. Let's do both of them into the Dark Dimension. We're going to do both into the Dark Dimension and hope. Okay, so the Wasp does come down. It doesn't negatively afflict us, but that's okay. And they did get the extra soak with Misty Knight in Limbo. Juggernaut does come down, unfortunately. Silver Surfer, buffing up their 3 costs, which are massive. Onslaught into Iron Man is massive in the right lane, depending on what we draw here. Living Tribunal now spreads it across the board, but is it enough? With the Jeff, it is just enough. And I mean just enough. We win we win Dark Dimension by 2, we lose Flooded Lane by 1. Wow. That was incredibly close. Very good game, Pestilence. This is just a very tough deck for us to navigate against. But we do get the Living Tribunal trigger. We are able to hold down. Not a huge victory. Had they not had the Juggernaut, this would have been very handily back in our favor. We will go ahead and take it. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Professor Y. We are maintaining just over a 60% win rate now. But the last time we matched against Professor Y, we lost. And so we're looking for revenge. We're looking for immediate revenge. It's been a little while. I think it was during our Infinite Climb. But we did drop a game to Professor Y. Spider-Ham does hit our Iron Lad, unfortunately. I'm curious what kind of... I don't remember what kind of deck they were running. Any number of things. Altar of Death is interesting. Electro into like a Jubilee, into being able to do magic into one of the locations is big. I think we're in an okay spot. Stark Tower is also decent. Let's go with the Electro first, and then we'll get a feel for the other locations. If we get our ideal line into the Onslaught, into the Living Tribunal, maybe we leave these 2 locations at their mercy. So they have an Electro as well. Ooh. Okay, so I think they're doing a ramp of some sort. So let's go Jubilee into the Altar of Death. I'm also going to go ahead and play our Loot Cage. We do have the ability to do magic. Ooh, Black Panther. So it is a ramp. So it's like a Sandman ramp. We get Wave, which is not big for us, unless we have 8 energy, which we might. We do have 8 energy. Oh my god. Do we even extend the game? They could have an Arnhem Zola, or we just give them additional turns to draw into the Arnhem Zola. Yeah, let's extend the game. We're gonna do magic. We're going to do our Iron Man. That allows us to do Onslaught, which we're going to draw into. We're going to draw into it. We have a we have a pretty good chance of being able to draw into it. We're going to draw into Onslaught. We're going to Living Tribunal and Death's Domain to be able to get a decent amount of power. Now, if they have the Arnhem Zola into Odin, it's almost unbeatable. They do have Wong. Don't tell me I chose Wong. I chose the Wong one. All right. We have the Iron Man coming down. That will get a +2 power bonus, which is decent. Onslaught is also going to help elevate our Ant-Man and the Iron Man drastically, which we do grab here. Beautiful, beautiful top deck. Beautiful, beautiful draws. Let's go with the Onslaught in Stark Tower. We will then go Living Tribunal in Limbo and hope that is enough. Now, in Arnhem Zola, okay, Dr. Doom. So maybe it's not the Arnhem Zola line? Okay. Alright, so we have the 88 power in Stark Tower, which is absurd. Let's go ahead. I mean, they could have an Odin. Odin would re-trigger this 4 times, but it would also do this and this, so we would win these 2. I'm okay with this. I'd be okay with this for 4 or even 8. A leader copies of the Living Tribunal. My god, that could have been devastating. But since we do have the Iron Man onslaught down, we are going to get the bigger of the two, and we finally get to show them our surprising Living Tribunal element. We will absolutely take it. We'll take the 2 cubes.